Welcome to our Line Opinion panelists for the week. We're happy to be joined in person in our Albuquerque studios by Tom Garrity. He's founder and president of the Garrity Group Public Relations. Giovanna Rossi is here. She is president of Collective Action Strategies. And our friend Michael Byrd, a longtime public health consultant, is with us as well. Now, we start this week at the governor's desk, where 245 bills finished their 60-day trip through the Roundhouse. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham signed more than 200 of those bills by the April 7th deadline. And she took the veto pen to 35 and stuck another 21 in a drawer with her pocket veto power. Now, she did sign that massive tax package that included $500 rebates, a child tax credit expansion, and reductions in gross receipts for healthcare providers. But the governor scalpeled out GRT cuts for other businesses. That's a big one right there. She axed the first alcohol tax increase in 30 years, another biggie, and denied changes to the state's personal income tax system that would have helped low-income New Mexicans. Now, the governor has received plenty of criticism over those line item vetoes. And Giovanna, I want to start here, including fellow Democrat and U.S. Senator Martin Heinrich, whose 3 tweets were highly critical. Giovanna, I'm curious, were those criticisms warranted? I mean, he was reflecting others, not just him, with these criticisms, but a U.S. Senator. That's very interesting to me. Was that warranted in your view?
Well, I think that there have been a lot of criticisms, and Senator Heinrich is one of them, apparently now. I think it's okay to voice his opinion. I mean, everybody's got an opinion, right? Like, why not share it?
But isn't there a line to these things? You stay in your Senate lane, you stay in your gubernatorial lane. You know what I mean? You don't cross over, especially in the same party. Criticizing someone from your same party, that's a tough one.
Right. Well, there might be some other information there about why. He might be talking to environmental groups. They might be encouraging him. I mean, who knows? Lots of things go on that we don't know about.
Right.
But I think, like, to look at it in perspective, there were a lot of bills that she did sign, and so we're very focused on, like, all of these vetoes and everything that she didn't sign. But I think looking at it as a whole is also helpful.
Interesting, Tom. Just to finish the Heinrich bit, he did one of his 3 tweets. Quote: "I'm disappointed to see many of those efforts now vetoed." Speaking about bold action to deliver for our state, tough stuff there. The proposed alcohol tax increase I mentioned in the setup shrank throughout the session. It started at 25 cents a drink before, getting down to a tax bill just a couple of pennies. The governor chopped that tiny bump out of the tax package. How did you take that when you heard about that?
Well, I took that as the power of lobbyists.
Okay.
Lobbyists aren't, it's not a bad word or anything like that. Lobbyists have tremendous influence, and perhaps that's what came into play on that particular issue. If I could very briefly go back to Senator Heinrich.
Absolutely.
He is not the first sitting senator who has tipped the scales or has put his fingers on the scales with regards to different issues.
Okay.
Senator Domenici was also very well known, but it is very uncommon because you have others who have been in that particular seat who have done all their stuff behind the scenes. It doesn't mean it's a big tent is what they say, and Senator Heinrich is definitely his own person, and so I think he's pretty much true to his brand.
Right.
As far as saying he's independent, you want to know where he stands, just ask him.
There you go.
And if you don't, then he'll tell you.
That's right.
So which I think is really good.
Yeah.
He has an interest clearly in stating his position, and that's what he's doing. And that's.
And it's always in a good and respectful way, which I appreciate.
Another Michael Byrd, another issue that met the slash was the tax for electric vehicles. Very interesting thing there. We're talking about an electric vehicle tax credit, I should say. She was more concerned with continuing oil and gas profits here, some people are accusing her of, than she is of meeting her own climate change goals. That's a tough way to look at where the governor's been over the last 5 years, but suddenly here we are with this kind of a thing.
We also have had one of the worst fires that's related to climate that took place in northern New Mexico.
That's right.
And that would seem to me to be a message to not just the governor, but to everyone here in New Mexico as to the impact of climate change on New Mexico.
That's right.
Plus, your own PBS station has been chronicling the issue of drought an ongoing condition over the years now. So it kind of it escapes me to see that in fact the governor did not take some action on these environmental proposals and was not supportive of them.
You know, I don't know if this makes a difference, Giovanna, but New Mexico has more than doubled its oil production in less than 5 years. And I go back to what I'm reading a lot online, that folks are very frustrated with this governor who are in the environment business, feeling like she's, you know, kowtowing to the oil and gas industry. Is that a fair accusation at this point, given what we've seen here for these vetoes?
I mean, you know, Tom mentioned that lobbyists have a lot of power in Santa Fe. I will say that it's curious.
Yeah.
And you know, she just went last fall to the Egypt, you know, climate conference. She did some executive orders of her own, naming 2 cabinet secretaries to chair a task force on environment. There's no question that how she feels about climate change. It's not like she doesn't believe in it or something.
Right.
Like some people, a vocal minority of the population. But it is curious. It almost seems like what was passed was not what she wanted.
Right.
But she has made efforts to put this task force together, to put her 2 secretaries of energy and minerals and the environment department together to do this task force. I don't know what the outcome of that task force has been, but
well, I'll remind everybody, the state's Clean Future Act of 2022 set a goal for the state to reach 50% emissions reductions by 2030 and net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, Tom Garrity. I ask again, is this furthering to that goal? It's something seems to be a bit of a meander than a straight line towards that.
Yeah, and you know, the question you pose is you know, fun to contemplate, because you know it would appear that, you know, Democrats are all against, you know, that there hasn't been more done for the environment.
Right.
When in actuality there already has been a lot done already. Energy Transition Act is really that foundational piece. But you know, sometimes, you know, it being a big tent, as we were talking about earlier, is I think that, you know, the progressives are probably very upset that they didn't get everything that they wanted. I mean, they have Democrats controlling the House, the Senate, and the 4th floor. Why shouldn't they get everything they want? And I think when we saw, you know, what was transpiring in the discussion on House Bill 547, which was the tax package, you know, that we saw we saw a lot of Democrats who were, you know, saying, you know what, this package is just too big, not the least of which is John Bingaman and former Senator John Arthur Smith. You know, both Democrats, both have served the government and you know, in different ways, and they brought up some great points in advance of the governor's veto. So you know, I think that, you know, what we're seeing as far as the outlet, you know, the people, you know, kind of pounding their fists, they just wanted everything, and I think that's why we have a veto pen. I mean, there was a lot of stuff in that tax package that I would have liked to have seen as well. I would have liked to have seen more of you know, reorganization of the tax structure. That was thrown out. I would like to see more support for small businesses. That really wasn't included either. So you know, there's just a lot of stuff, but you know, you got to give and take, and that's why we all have a say in the governmental process.
Please.
Yeah. Getting back to the alcohol tax.
Oh yeah.
You know, New Mexico has an alcohol problem, and has for historically, and as someone who comes from a family that was impacted by alcohol abuse, I'm well aware of the fact that the populations and the communities that it impacts are American Indian, Hispanic population, and the poor. That's right. And it ripples across the system. It's responsible for alcohol. Alcohol abuse. There are all kinds of health issues. It's responsible for drunken driving. It's responsible for the families breaking up.
That's right.
It's responsible for many of children who have to go into the system, children, youth, and family systems, and foster care, and the impact that alcohol has on New Mexico and New Mexico citizens is really, I think, if criminal if we do not respond to it in an appropriate way, and by not not putting some resources into it, not investing more in prevention programs. All of these things ripple across our systems, and to not address this ensures the fact that this issue will continue to cause problems for everyone.
Yeah. I'm sorry, do you have a point on that, Giovanna, please?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to follow up because, you know, you have a public health background. Alcohol abuse is a public health problem, and I think that is clear, you know, and then it's sort of like, okay, what's the solution? And maybe the governor, you know, it wasn't enough. Maybe it was too much. It wasn't clear which side she was.
If she had said something that we could have some clarity on that.
Well, the only thing we heard was that the numbers weren't quite right. At least that was what was quoted in the paper.
But it also takes, I need to move on, unfortunately, but it also takes $10 million off the table with these couple of pennies on each drink that was going to go towards what Michael just mentioned, you know, help for families, abatement issues, all that kind of thing. That's not there now. I'm not quite sure where the governor's coming from, how you can make that up as opposed to what was laid in front of you. You don't want to do 25 cents a drink, that's fine, but 2 cents? Can't even do 2 cents? I mean, something weird there. All right, thanks to our line opinion panel on that one. We'll meet back here at the table in less than 15 to talk about an investigation from Searchlight New Mexico and ProPublica that reveals the state's failures in caring for foster children in need of mental health care in our state.